deal to extend the truce in Gaza is taking effect literally as we are coming on the air right now, with the world's spotlight on the hostages. 11 of them arriving in Israel in just the last hour or so after being freed by Hamas. How many more could be released with fighting paused for the next couple days? We'll take you live to the region. Plus, the suspect in court today in the shooting of 3 students of Palestinian descent here in the U.S. Our team, one-on-one with the victims' families, and why the Justice Department is investigating this as a possible hate crime. And record travel today, even after the busy holiday weekend, and a lot of people fighting their way home, also fighting snow, the potential of 3 feet of it. We're live with the latest on delays and the forecast. Plus, remember Malaysian Air Flight 370, that plane that mysteriously disappeared a decade ago? Today, the families of those killed on the flight in court, what they want from a judge all these years later, and why the CEO of Weight Watchers says her company got it wrong. Later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and starting right now, it looks like more hostages are set to be released, and that pause in the intense fighting inside Gaza could hold for at least the next 48 hours under the terms of a new truce agreement. Look at some of this brand new video. It's into us just minutes ago of some of the 11 newly released hostages. You can see them. They're heading into some Red Cross vans. We're being told those hostages are now back in Israel. We should note that the footage that you're looking at here has been edited, it seems, by Al Jazeera, which released it. Right now, you've got Israel and Hamas coming to terms on yet another truce deal. This one set to last 2 days on top of the 4 we've already seen. And that new agreement really coming in the 11th hour here, because it is midnight in the region. That's when we are coming on the air here, meaning that initial pause in fighting was set to expire after the release of the 50 hostages kidnapped by Hamas last month and 39 Palestinian prisoners in Israel. To that end, look at some of these emotional reunions. People held in Hamas captivity for nearly 7 weeks. Look, a 9-year-old girl, Emily Hand. There she is running into her dad's arms, hugging her sister. 4-year-old Abigail Idan, released in just the last 24 hours. She is now with her aunt and uncle in an Israeli hospital. Her parents were both killed in that October 7th terror attack on Israel. So with all of this now, the bottom line as we speak, the biggest diplomatic breakthrough in the Israel-Hamas war so far looks like it'll last at least a little longer. Still, none of this settles some of the key questions we have tonight, like what exactly the next 48 hours is set to look like. Who the 20 hostages the Pentagon says Hamas will release actually are, and who are the Palestinian prisoners set to be freed too? Hamas and Egypt both say 33 Palestinians will be released today. Inside Gaza, you have hundreds of aid trucks flooding in, bringing the food, the water, the gas people there so desperately need. But even still, a sense of foreboding about where this war goes next. The Israeli prime minister reiterating his goal to eliminate Hamas, saying his military will, in his words, demilitarize and de-radicalize Gaza before it can rebuild the Strip. We've got team coverage on this from every angle tonight. Aaron McLaughlin and Richard Engel are both live for us in Tel Aviv. Ali Rafa is near the White House. Richard, let me start with you here. What we do know, and importantly, what we don't know about this truce extension and what these next 48 hours could look like here.
Well, we do know that it has been extended, and we are expecting that it will look like what we have seen over the last several days. There has been a 4-day truce in effect. It is expiring right now, and it is rolling into a 6-day truce. And during this truce, Israel agrees not to carry out its airstrikes in Gaza, not to carry out its offensive military operations, in order to allow Hamas to gather the hostages together and carry out these exchanges. And Israel has said that it would extend this truce for 2 days as long as Hamas, on each of those days, so over the next 24 and then 48 hours after that, releases at least 10 more hostages, with the possibility of it being extended for a 3rd day, a 4th day, potentially beyond that. We know that the mediators, particularly Qatar, hope that this becomes the foundation for a more lasting settlement. But as you mentioned at the top of the show, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that is not in the cards. That is not part of the agenda, that his agenda is to continue carrying out the military operation until Hamas is eliminated, that until Gaza is de-radicalized in his language, and that this is strictly a tactical pause to allow for some of the hostages to be released in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. So we don't know where all of this is going. We know what the next 48 hours might look like, but we have very little idea of what the next 6, 8, 10 months are going to look like.
Well, you're hitting on something, Richard, that is so critical here, right? In that it is possible that after these 48 hours, you could maybe see continued truce extensions, right? If hostages continue to be released. The question is, when does the fighting return to what it was, if at any point? Do you have any insight into that based on some of the reporting that you're doing on the ground here? That does seem to be obviously the biggest question.
Very clear reporting. An Israeli government spokesman this morning couldn't be clearer on this point. He said that as soon as Hamas stops releasing hostages, the military operation will begin immediately. So Israel has said, and this has been the Prime Minister Netanyahu's line, that if this deal stops for any reason, and this deal is entirely contingent on Hamas releasing hostages, if that pauses or isn't fulfilled, then Israel will go back to its bombing campaign. And that could happen if this deal breaks down tomorrow or the next day or at the end of this week or next. So if you listen to what the Israelis are saying, they say that this is just temporary, that this is a tactical pause to get some hostages out, and that their strategic military objectives of destroying Hamas have not really even begun at this stage, because the military operation has only been focusing in terms of the ground operation in northern Gaza. And Israel has said that it will go into southern Gaza to try and clear out Hamas. Whether that will be successful, whether it will just lead to another long-term occupation in the Middle East is an open question. But Israel says its goal is to continue its military operation until Hamas is destroyed all across the Gaza Strip.
You were on the ground, Richard, in the days after, the hours after this war began in early October, in mid-October. You are on the ground there now as we are seeing what is so far the biggest diplomatic breakthrough in the war. Can you give us a sense of the mood on the ground, the mood in the region where you are, and from the people that you've been talking to, I know, for weeks and months?
Well, still a lot of anger, still a lot of shock. I would say these last couple of days have given Israelis a degree of hope because you're finally seeing some progress. When you walk around Tel Aviv, you can't walk a few blocks without noticing the posters of the hostages. They are on billboards 30 feet high. They are on electronic screens. The logo, "Bring them home," it has become a national mantra. So these hostages, I don't want to call them celebrities, because they're in no way they're celebrities, but they are recognizable figures now. People know the hostages by name. You see their pictures, and some of the young children are distinctly recognizable with bright red hair or other family photos that were used in these hostage clips are now well known across Israel. So for many people here, it's like members of their own family are coming home, or members of their own community are finally reunited with their family. That, of course, gives people a degree of satisfaction, but not much, because there are still many people held inside Gaza, still many people who are still hostages. Tonight, the 11 people who were freed, and the Israelis said they are now in Israeli custody, 2 women and 9 children. All of them from one kibbutz, all of them still have relatives held by Hamas.
Richard Engel, we're glad to have you there live for us in Tel Aviv tonight. Thank you very much for being with us. I want to get to Aaron now on some of those emotional reunions where you are inside Israel. Aaron, the images are intense to see some of these, in particular children, reunited with either family members, parents, etc. Talk to us about who's been released, who's left here.
Well, we have the list now of the now former hostages that were released just a short while ago. We also have their nationalities, including 2 German citizens, 6 Argentinian citizens, and 3 French citizens. As Richard was just mentioning there, all of the people that you see on that screen lived in kibbutz near Oz. It was one of the hardest hit of the kibbutzim on October 7th. Hamas militants storming their kibbutz. The entire community had a WhatsApp group that day, and they were all exchanging messages. According to Israeli officials, a quarter of the entire kibbutz was either murdered or kidnapped on October 7th, and now 11 more of their members returning home. We got a statement from the kibbutz earlier today saying the news this evening brings a sigh of relief to our community. However, we remain deeply concerned about our loved ones that are still held hostage. We demand the return of all hostages immediately, whatever it takes. Now, out of the remaining hostages, which is about 139 hostages remaining right now in Hamas custody in Gaza, 49 are still from near Oz. And one of the stipulations of the agreement, the initial agreement that was brokered by Qatar with the help of the United States, is that any hostages remaining behind by day 4 of the ceasefire would get a visit from the Red Cross. And we're still waiting right now to hear if that is in fact happening. And that is critical to the families with hostages still in Gaza, because so many of these families have not had a proof of life. Hallie.
Aaron McLaughlin live for us there in Tel Aviv. Aaron, thanks. I want to bring in Hallie Rafa now, who is near the White House. And Hallie, in just the last few minutes, we've learned that Secretary of State Tony Blinkin is set to head back to the region this week. Tell us more about what you're learning about what the Biden administration is doing, not just publicly, a la this Blinkin trip, but behind the scenes at this point.
Absolutely, Hallie. Well, we know that administration officials, both here in Washington and on the ground in Israel, have been working tirelessly since October 7th to get this ceasefire deal reached. And officials say that the president has played a key role in not just the original deal, also ironing out the obstacles on Saturday of that hours-long pause by Hamas in the release of hostages, and also this extension that we're seeing, that White House officials and the president want extended even further. And as you mentioned, there is diplomacy going on behind the scenes to try to achieve that. Listen to what White House spokesperson Admiral John Kirby had to say about that in today's press briefing.
In order to extend the pause, Hamas has committed to releasing another 20 women and children over the next 2 days. We would, of course, hope to see the pause extended further, and that will depend upon Hamas continuing to release hostages.
As you mentioned, Hallie, we learned in the last hour from a senior administration official that Secretary of State Antony Blinken this week will return to Israel and the West Bank, where he's expected to talk about potentially extending that ceasefire, also talking about how to prevent this conflict from spreading even wider, and talking about what the future of Gaza looks like. The president also saying he's working the phones, talking with the leaders of Qatar, of Egypt, and of course Israel. Yesterday, he spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu, both of them agreeing to stay in very close contact over the next few days, both of them agreeing that their work is not done, as this White House and this president continue to wait and see whether Americans will be among the next hostages released as part of this extended ceasefire. Hallie.
Hallie Rafa live for us here in Washington. Thanks, Hallie. The suspect in the triple shooting of 3 students of Palestinian descent pleading not guilty to attempted murder charges today, as the Justice Department looks into whether or not the attack on a quiet Vermont street was motivated by hate. That's something the mother of one victim believes is the case, telling our team that essentially it is her nightmare come true.
My husband thought that he would be safe in the U.S., thought that he would be safe at Brown, thought he would be safe in Vermont. This man chose to come up to them and shoot them. Whatever, we will find out the reason why, but it was a vicious, targeted crime.
All of it, as we're getting some chilling new details about this suspect, Jason Eaton, telling ATF agents who came to his door on Sunday he'd been, in his words, "I've been waiting for you." Before police entered, they say they found several guns and a distinctive type of ammo that helped tie him to the shooting, according to some documents. Eaton's being held without bail and faces 3 counts of attempted murder, charges that could put him away for life. Those 3 students are in the hospital even still tonight, with one relative telling us one of them may never walk again. NBC's George Solis is in Burlington for us. It is a crime. It is a shooting that has shocked that community and so many in this country. What kind of details do we know tonight about the investigation and how police ended up tracking this guy down?
Yeah, that's right. Let's rewind the clock. So we know this shooting happened Saturday after the boys who were here visiting a relative for the Thanksgiving holiday were approached by this individual who didn't say anything and opened fire. We know Two of those boys, men I should say, are in stable condition. The third one sustaining more serious injuries, a shot to the spine that will likely prevent him from ever walking again, but the family does have hope, of course. That led to ATF agents canvassing the area in that neighborhood where the shooting happened, close to the University of Vermont. There they knocked on a door. The individual came out there. The suspect, now identified as Jason Eaton, telling them that, hey, I've been waiting for you, or something to that effect, telling them that he had a gun in the apartment, and then saying, I'm not saying anything more without a lawyer. Then comes a search warrant, and they do find that Ruger pistol at .380. They also find a .22 rifle and a shotgun. They also take with them some items like hard drives and a computer, an iPod, some other materials as part of this search warrant. And yeah, it's been an absolute tragedy for the family. We spoke with the uncles of two of those victims, who are one of them who was hosting the men here for the Thanksgiving holiday. Another uncle who came in from the West Coast to be with their loved one after this tragedy tells me that they tell me that the boys, the men, are in good spirits at this time, considering everything that they went through. But obviously, this is their worst fears realized about this crime that they really do hope ends up being investigated as a hate crime. Listen.
The families are acting on the assumption, and understandably so, that this is a hate crime, that these boys were targeted because of who they are, what they look like.
It seems difficult to imagine that it wasn't motivated by hate.
Hallie, one of the things that officials noted today during their press conference is that while they're still looking whether or not this will eventually become a federal hate crime investigation, this was certainly a hateful act, and they are going to be looking at some of those details and some of those information that they recovered from the suspect's apartment to sort of piece together those dots. But meanwhile, the family members that are here, and we know other family members are trying to make their way to Burlington, are just going to try and reunite with those boys and hope for their speedy recovery. Hallie.
George Solis live for us there in Burlington. George, thank you for being there. Thank you for that reporting. I know we'll talk again as we get updates on that case. Tonight, there are new fears of this war escalating after 2 missiles were fired toward a Navy ship in the Middle East. Now, they were fired toward the ship, didn't actually hit it. But look at this map. The Department of Defense says the missiles came from a part of Yemen controlled by the Iranian-backed militia group called the Houthis. So this is the map. The ship was in the Gulf of Aden. You see that? It's just south of Yemen, just north of Somalia. The timing here is important. Just hours before this whole thing went down, that same Navy ship had been responding to a call from a commercial tanker that was reportedly under a pirate attack. I want to bring in NBC's Pentagon correspondent Courtney Kuby in court just to set the sort of stakes for this a little bit. This is a pretty big deal, right? I mean, the series of attacks that you've been reporting on here, like in any other sort of Newsweek news cycle, would be, I think, in some ways leading coverage here. Talk us through what it means, what your reporting is, and why it is significant that you have this potential Iranian-backed group getting involved here.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. There's so much going on in the news right now, but I think if there weren't so much, we would really be focusing a lot more on this, because what we have here is these Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen firing 2 close-range ballistic missiles that came within about 10 nautical miles of a U.S. Navy ship. Now, you may say 10 nautical miles, that's pretty far away, and that's true, but the fact that they were firing these missiles towards this U.S. Navy ship, which, as you said, was there responding to a distress call for a commercial vessel, the fact that they fired those towards them is very significant. And, Hallie, frankly, this follows weeks of these Houthi rebels in Yemen with more and increasingly more activity. Frankly, things that we have not seen from them in the past, not just firing these close-range ballistic missiles, but lobbing drones, firing drones towards Israel, other missiles, precision-guided missiles. So they really have shown not just a dramatic increase in their activity in the region in recent weeks, but an increase in their capabilities beyond what we even realized. Now, I will say, the USS Mason, the U.S. Navy ship that was there, that was nearby where these ballistic missiles landed in the water, it was there to rescue a commercial tanker that was there called the Central Park. Now, what we are learning today, which we've been working on all day, is who exactly was behind the hijacking of that, because there was some suspicion those may have been Houthi rebels as well. We now believe that those were Somali citizens. They may have actually just been, frankly, pirates that do tend to operate in that region. At this point, defense officials here do not think the 2 incidents were linked beyond the fact that the Houthis fired on the ship that was there responding to this distress call, Hallie.
How might this truce agreement that Israel and Hamas have now entered into, that we know is going to get extended for another couple of days, affect the dynamic here in the Gulf of Aden that we're talking about?
So it hasn't seemed to impact the Houthis' actions, but that's different in the maritime environment than what we're seeing on land, specifically in Iraq and Syria, where since October 17th, there have been at least 73 attacks on bases with Americans in Iraq and Syria. Well, those have stopped. During this truce, starting on Friday, according to defense officials, there have not been any attacks on those bases. And I think one reason that this is so significant, Hallie, is the fact that for weeks and weeks we had defense officials here saying there's no tie between what's happening in Israel and Gaza and the attacks on the bases. Well, the reality is, as we've said here before, nothing happens in a vacuum, and it's very clear that this decrease, this complete halt to these attacks on bases is tied to the truce in Gaza.
Courtney Kube live for us at the Pentagon covering all of it. Court, thank you. Let's bring you back here to home now, because tonight the holiday hangover travel-wise is kicking in, with millions of people taking today off to hit the roads, to catch flights after a record-breaking Thanksgiving weekend. In fact, American Airlines is saying that today, along with yesterday, are their most traveled days ever. And we're learning nearly 3 million people were screened at airports yesterday, according to the TSA. That's up something like 10% from this time last year. All these folks are making their way home, at least some of them, in the middle of some messy weather. It is giving late November chill, with temperatures below average for this time of year in the Midwest and out east. Wind chills hitting the teens in Chicago today after some weekend snow. It may be weekday snow in the Great Lakes, some 5 million people under snow alerts there. Look at this. Ohio, Pennsylvania, upstate New York. They could ultimately, when this is said and done, see something like 3 feet. Our team's watching all of it. Marissa Parr at Reagan International. Meteorologist Bill Cairns is here for us, too. Bill, stand by. But Marissa, to you first. Some of the busiest travel days, they're happening in less than ideal conditions. Talk us through what you're seeing. Talk us through how delays look right now.
Hey, Hallie, I will say I've been keeping an eye on this for the past couple of days, and at its peak yesterday, I really didn't see the delays go higher than 700. And we see some pockets of delays in the Midwest because of wintry weather, and some pockets of delays in the Northeast because of rain and maybe an icy mix here and there. But that is really striking when you consider the fact that the FAA is reporting less than 1.5% of all flights in the country yesterday were canceled. That is really striking when you remember that yesterday was a record-breaking day. Over 2.9 million TSA passengers screened in just one day. That did, in fact, surpass the record that was set in June earlier this year. In fact, the TSA said that 7 out of 10 of their busiest days on record have been this year. And so that's really tracking with what we're seeing is an increase in people flying. We know that the majority of people over Thanksgiving holiday and holidays in general tend to take to the roads. Over 49 million across the Thanksgiving holiday took to the roads. But those records are really being set in the air, Hallie. And what I will also add on the end of this, you mentioned people taking off today to travel. I've actually met a number of people who are actually working today and say that, you know, they're remote working, so they're able to travel while they're still on the clock. And so that is kind of in keeping with what we're seeing and what I've kind of been reporting on over the last couple of years is, you know, AAA is saying that Monday and just in general days, I saw that face you had just now. Yeah, I mean, the way that we used to be able to predict travel. Yeah, no judgment. Listen, they're still getting their work done and they think that they're beating the traffic. The problem is everyone's kind of thinking the same way. So Monday, which didn't used to be as busy as it is now increasingly become a more common day for return travel, Hallie.
That's super interesting. It is a sign of the shifting times that we live in. Marissa Parr, live for us there at Reagan. Marissa, good to see you. Thank you. So, Bill, let me go to you. Talk us through it, right? Snow, we mentioned. It's windy. It's cold. What? Did you fly back today, too? Did you do work on the plane?
I mean, I'm just getting over the fact that the work from home people, you know, okay, I get it. Now we got to deal with the work from the road people, too. I mean, that's a whole nother, you know.
Safe space. We are not. Who are we to pass judgment,
We don't
Bill?
judge.
We're just here to report on what people are doing.
That's right. Us 5 days a weekers that just come to work every day. We don't, you know, we're not bitter at all. So, hell yes. Let's get into this cold weather. So, the coldest things over the weekend was Kansas. I mean, Kansas picked up around 6 to 10 inches in a few spots, which even by Kansas midwinter standards was a big deal. Now the cold air is rushing in. We haven't talked a lot about the cold air this winter season. Even the areas that are typically snowy in November haven't been until now. So the wind chill in International Falls is -5. So that's the first key and the first sign that there is some cold Canadian air that is flowing down. It's now 6 in Green Bay, 3 in Minneapolis. Detroit feels like 14. And all of this is heading over what we call relatively warm lakes. There's no ice on the lakes yet. It hasn't been cold enough. And the temperature difference between the cold air and then the water in the lakes, that produces snow. And that's why we're seeing these lake effect snow bands. And these will be with us for the next 2 days. And so we will get some hefty totals, especially the snow towns south of Buffalo and eventually north of Syracuse up here in the Tug Hill Plateau. But anyone driving in southern Michigan, you could easily go through a quick snow squall. And especially with the sun setting now, the temperature's dropping. It'll start sticking on the roads more. So easily visibility can quickly drop. So these are our winter weather advisories. The areas that will get the heavy snow is where we have these lake effect snow warnings. And here's the snow predictions. Areas south in the snow towns could pick up over a foot. I think the highest totals will be up here what we call the Tug Hill Plateau, not far from where Al Roker's alma mater, the University of Oswego, is located. That could be up to 2 to 3 feet. And that's very common, Hallie. That's nothing to, that doesn't happen that on often. Every winter we get storms like this in that area. The snow forecast over the next 7 days, for anyone else wondering when are we going to get our snow, nothing in the Northeast, nothing in southern New England, nothing in the Ohio Valley. But we will talk later this week, Hallie. A lot of our friends in the West, the ski resorts, have had a really rough start to their snow season. They got a storm coming at the end of this week. That'll be our next thing we'll deal with after we get done with this one.
All right. I'm sure we'll talk again. Bill Cairns, thank you much. We got a lot more to get to here on this show, too, including some new concerns around the Pope's health after he had to postpone a couple of meetings. What the Vatican says he's being treated for now. Plus, this Cyber Monday could break records. Why experts say this year still looks a little different. We'll explain that next. So right now we are towards the tail end of, but in the middle of what could be the biggest Cyber Monday ever, the biggest one ever, with a bunch of people getting off work, maybe getting ready to get online, hit up some spots. Some experts say that sales today alone could end up passing $12 billion. Some estimates already in projecting just in the last 5 days, sales are up online more than 5% from last year, probably because of some new marketing techniques trying to lure shoppers in. Brian Chung has more.
Well, hello from Robbinsville, New Jersey. We are at an Amazon fulfillment center. This is one of many across the country that could be processing the packages that you're ordering on this Cyber Monday. We're seeing an expected $12 billion in spend, according to Adobe Analytics. If that does come in, that would be a record amount of spending for this particular shopping holiday. The National Retail Federation saying it expects over 70 million Americans to participate in the deals today. We're seeing 60% off at Target, 80% off some items at Walmart, and Amazon is unveiling deals every 5 minutes. They want to make sure that people are coming back to the site many times across the day. Experts are telling us that Cyber Monday is the better holiday to shop if you're just perusing or browsing, because the amount of deals and the breadth of the deals tends to be wider than on Black Friday, where the discounts will be deep, but they might be a little bit more targeted. And of course, as we are talking about Cyber Monday, shipping is very much a big part of the conversation. One research firm says that package carriers are expected to be able to handle all the capacity. They're apparently more than able to handle what they expect this season. Amazon says that facilities like this are regionally focused, a strategy that they say will be able to get those packages to your doorstep on time. Back to you.
Our thanks to Brian Chung for that reporting. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, a lawyer for Derek Chauvin says his family is not getting updates on how he's doing after Chauvin was stabbed in prison. Remember, he's the former police officer convicted of murdering George Floyd. A Bureau of Prison spokesperson did not immediately respond to NBC's request for comment. Chauvin was stabbed over the Thanksgiving holiday, but officials say he is expected to survive. Number 2, the Vatican says the Pope's postponing some more meetings because of breathing problems and apparently some lung inflammation. The Vatican says the Pope does not have pneumonia, but he did have a tube put in to get him some antibiotics. It comes after years of health problems. The Pope turns 87 next month. Number 3, a Southwest Airlines passenger ended up in the hospital after opening the emergency exit and climbing onto the plane's wing. Look at that. Officials say the plane was at the big airport in New Orleans. It was not moving at the time. They say there are no criminal charges because of this, at least not right now. Number 4, Honda recalling more than 300,000 Accords and HRVs 2023 and 2024 model years. It's because of a defect that could prevent some front seatbelts from tightening the right way in a crash. Honda says about 1% of the cars they recalled are actually defective. They say they haven't heard of people getting hurt. Number 5, a new campaign out of Mexico is trying to save little guys like this. type of salamander called an axolotl by letting people virtually adopt them. So for $35, one of these can be yours, like in the wild. You can adopt an axolotl. In return, you're going to get live updates on how it's doing. You can also just buy one dinner if you're not ready to make the full adoption commitment. Almost all of the axolotl species in Mexico are critically endangered. NBC News confirming tonight that former President Carter is in Atlanta and set to go to services for his late wife and former First Lady Rosalind Carter. It would be a very rare public appearance for the former president, who is 99 years old. Remember, he was in hospice care as of February. You see him here with his wife, Rosalind, during one of the few times he's been seen in public this year. This was at the Plains Peanut Festival back in September. He's in the car with her. The next few days include a full slate of observances and tributes for the former First Lady, who died last Sunday at the age of 96. You have top officials and dignitaries from all over heading down south to attend, including, as you just saw, President Biden, Vice President Harris, their spouses. NBC's Blaine Alexander is in Atlanta for us, and it is, of course, not surprising that a spouse would attend the services of their spouse. That is, I think, something a lot of people understand. It is rare for Jimmy Carter to appear publicly, period, Blaine.
Absolutely, especially, Hallie, when you consider the fact that he entered hospice care back in February. He's 99 years old. And so for him to come out, not only, he's expected to attend tomorrow, we're talking about a rather lengthy ceremony. We're talking about something with a lot of people there, and just the sheer fact that he made it to Atlanta from Plains, Georgia. We're talking about a nearly 3-hour car ride. Not sure how he was transported here, but all of this certainly is just absolutely extraordinary when you think of a former president making an appearance like this. So let's start with what we saw today with the ceremonies for Rosalind Carter. It really is special because here in the state of Georgia, certainly she's honored as the First Lady that Georgia birthed. So we've really kind of seen this tour almost throughout the state, starting in her beloved home of Plains, Georgia, and then making its way to Southwestern State University, of course, her alma mater, where wreaths were laid, and then making the way to Carter Center. Tomorrow, we're going to see really almost a parade of White House occupants, past and present. You talked about Joe Biden and the First Lady. We're also going to see the former President Bill Clinton, former First Lady Hillary Clinton, and then all of the remaining former First Ladies, Michelle Obama, Laura Bush, Melania Trump. All of them are expected to be in attendance tomorrow, Hallie. And then finally, on the third day, the former First Lady is going to be taken back down to Plains, Georgia, to her beloved hometown, where there will be another ceremony there, and she will be laid to rest. Now, of course, as you mentioned, all eyes are going to be on her husband of 77 years, the former president. He is expected to attend tomorrow. Still unknown whether or not he's going to make a public appearance in Plains, Georgia on Wednesday. But again, certainly extraordinary that we're expecting to see him in public tomorrow honoring his late wife, Hallie.
That is for sure. Blaine Alexander live for us there in Atlanta. Blaine, thank you. A lot more to get to when we come back, including more on this mysterious outbreak of kids getting sick in China, overwhelming hospitals. We'll tell you what officials think could be behind this. Plus, a moment on a popular Disneyland ride going viral, why it ended up with a guy getting arrested. Well, that's obvious if you look at that picture. That's coming up. The mystery of why so many kids in China are getting sick with symptoms similar to pneumonia now has health experts around the world sounding the alarm after video started to come out like this, showing ERs packed with parents and their children in China. With the WHO now saying they want more info, more data from the Chinese government about what's going on with these multiple respiratory illnesses. Keep in mind that China is now entering its first winter since dropping COVID restrictions last year. NBC's Janice Mackey-Frayer has more from Beijing.
An outbreak of respiratory illness across Beijing and northern China has triggered concern at the World Health Organization, which had requested more detailed information from Chinese health authorities about what doctors here have been dealing with. Hospitals in Beijing and in other cities have been swamped for weeks, mostly children needing treatment for pneumonia-like symptoms. Emergency rooms have been so overwhelmed that the health ministry ordered that fever clinics be open to handle demand. Now, the rising number of cases prompted the WHO to ask for more data. What Chinese health authorities say was a routine request. They said they have found no unusual or novel diseases. This is Chinese officials talking, adding that the flood of cases are the usual mix of known viruses as well as mycoplasma pneumonia, or walking pneumonia, and RSV. All of it linked to the first full cold and flu season here since COVID restrictions were lifted last December. An alert last week on ProMed, a global reporting system for emerging outbreaks, had health experts worried about quote-unquote undiagnosed pneumonia in China because that's what COVID started as before it was called COVID. Now, cases here actually started back in October, and there have been a lot of videos on social media over the past few weeks. Health authorities are now asking parents to hold off on taking their kids to the hospital if their symptoms are mild, to avoid those long wait times and the risk of cross-infection.
Our thanks to Janice Mackey-Frere for that reporting from China. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Southern Bureau, police in Louisiana are looking for a 17-year-old murder suspect who escaped from jail for the second time this month. He broke out with another young man his age who's also being held on murder charges, another teenager. Police say both are considered armed and dangerous. They're trying to figure out how these two got out in the first place. Out of our West Coast Bureau, a man has been arrested now after streaking at Disneyland on the It's a Small World ride, no less. He got off, climbed up to some of the set pieces there. Police say he was arrested for indecent exposure and for being under the influence of a controlled substance. And out of our Washington Bureau, First Lady Jill Biden unveiling this season's White House holiday decorations. The theme this year, magic, wonder, and joy. Look at that little train set. She says it's supposed to connect you to your inner child. By the numbers, you've got 98 Christmas trees, 140,000 lights, 30,000 ornaments, and a partridge in a pear tree. Back overseas now, a new guest visiting Israel and its leaders today. Not a politician, not a president. Instead, it was Elon Musk, social media mogul. Here he is with the prime minister walking around the ruins of houses in one of the kibbutzim hit hardest from the October 7th terror attack. The Israeli government says they showed Musk evidence of the atrocities committed by Hamas, in their words. And if you're like, hey, what is Musk doing there? Why is Elon Musk in Israel? That was not on a lot of people's bingo cards. It wasn't just about a week ago, remember, that Musk and his platform X got a ton of heat after he seemed to agree, after he did agree with a tweet about an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Now he's talking with Israeli leaders about just that.
Jew hate impacts the entire notion of behavior of human beings in so many places around the world, and you have a huge role to play, and I think we need to fight it together, because under the platforms which you lead, unfortunately, there's a harboring of a lot of old hate.
I want to bring in NBC tech correspondent Jake Ward, who is joining us now. Okay, so Jake, a couple of threads to pull on here, starting with the one that we just laid out here. The idea that a week ago, Elon Musk was getting slammed from all corners for agreeing with this anti-Semitic tweet, for allowing X to become a place where anti-Semitism ran rampant. Now here he is sitting in Israel with leaders there. Is it an apology tour? How should we be looking at this?
You know, Hallie, it is, always hard to decode this stuff directly, but Elon Musk did come as close as one could come to admitting that this was something of an apology tour. I mean, as you laid out there, right, he's been under heat since that anti-Semitic conspiracy theory and his backing up of it on his own platform has driven away advertisers in droves. And he, went on to try to explain on Twitter, I'm not anti-Semitic, people are misconstruing my words, I'm all about positivity and creating a prosperous future for everyone. But he seems to have felt that that was not enough, making this trip to Israel, touring the Kfar Aza kibbutz that you mentioned there, and then in the end, he put out on X, actions speak louder than words. So this does seem to have been a pretty clear, effort on his part to clear the air and be seen to be an ally with Israel at this time, Hallie.
What does Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu get out of this visit?
Well, this is the crazy part, right, is that you've got this total, red carpet dignitary kind of visit. I mean, Netanyahu giving up his day, a full security detail, standing under the umbrella in the kibbutz with him. What is this for? Well, it's not entirely, coincidental, because Elon Musk is not just the CEO of SpaceX and Tesla and X. He's also the CEO of Starlink, right? The largest communications satellite platform in the world, more than 4,300 satellites. You remember back when Russia invaded Ukraine, it became a big issue because Ukraine was essentially denied use of Starlink by Elon Musk, and it blew a hole in their capability to make certain attacks. Well, here, he seems to have sat down with the communications minister of Netanyahu and come up with an agreement. And in a tweet, Shlomo Karhi, the communications minister, said, Elon Musk, I congratulate you for reaching a principal understanding with the Ministry of Communications. As a result of this agreement, Starlink satellite units will only be operated in Israel with the approval of the Ministry of Communications, including the Gaza Strip. And I don't think it's coincidental here, Hallie, you always have to read between the lines on these things, but at the end of that tweet, Shlomo also says, during your time in Israel, I hope that it will serve as a springboard for future endeavors and as well as enhance your relationship with the Jewish people, kind of nodding at the problems he's had on X, and now having secured this major strategic win for the Netanyahu administration by allowing, by forcing Elon Musk to basically hand over access to Starlink to Israeli authorities here.
It's not the first time, too, that Elon Musk has gotten involved in geopolitics. I think back to, obviously, him, Starlink, Ukraine. I think this was months ago or maybe a year ago now, Jake. You talk about the issues with X. In many ways, it seems like the damage has been done here from Elon Musk's management and leadership of that platform over the last, X period of time. The New York Times has some numbers out today showing that X could lose something like, look at this, $75 million in ad money because you have all these advertisers pulling out, as we've covered here on the show. If the policies on X don't change, what's going to make a difference here, even despite these international tours that Musk is doing?
Well, at this point, stemming the bleeding, it's just not clear at all how he'll do that, right? This is not a company that can afford to lose tens of millions of dollars in advertising revenue. And going abroad and getting, in this case, inextricably linked with the war in Israel, I don't think that's going to turn around. I don't think any observers are saying it's going to get turned around. I mean, he is just getting more and more twisted up in his leadership of X, and at a time when that company cannot afford it, and now to be binding his other companies up in the same kind of issue, it is just a very, very messy state of affairs over there, Hallie.
Jake Ward, thank you very much. Following all of it for us tonight. Coming up, a lot more to get to here on the show, including a new twist in that Malaysia Airlines flight that mysteriously disappeared a decade ago. We'll tell you what's happening today. You're not going to want to miss this. Coming up in just a sec. Back to Beijing now. We're nearly a decade after flight MH370 disappeared. Some new developments now related to that mysterious Malaysian Air apparent crash. You probably remember this story. It was everywhere. It was world news for weeks, for months, after this plane seemed to fall out of the sky. No trace, nothing turning up after this search and rescue. The 239 people on board never found. The whole thing spawning a host of conspiracy theories and years of trauma for the victims' families. And today, a new twist, with many of those family members now in court, suing the airline and the makers of the plane for millions. Here's Noah Pransky.
The biggest mystery of 2014, still largely unsolved today.
Malaysia Airlines 777 has been lost.
A massive multinational search.
Not a shred of debris from the aircraft has been spotted or found.
Families of those missing passengers still seeking answers nearly a decade later, beginning another process this week, seeking compensation. According to Reuters, they're asking a Chinese court to force 4 companies to pay them millions in damages.
I ask for the restart of the search, and also for Malaysia Airlines to reestablish communication with us and provide us with psychological assistance.
In March of 2014, Flight 370 vanished just 38 minutes after taking off from Kuala Lumpur en route to Beijing. What followed was one of the largest search missions the world has ever seen. 8 countries, 19 ships, 22 airplanes, scouring almost 5 million square miles of ocean. All turning up Nothing. There was wall-to-wall media coverage. But as days turned into weeks, then into months, new questions arose as to how a plane with radio and black box equipment could just vanish. Social media then stoked the flames of conspiracy, including one discredited theory the plane safely landed at a secret location. But officials were unconvinced.
All 239 of the passengers and crew are presumed to have lost their lives.
And every few months after that, another piece of debris, believed to be from Flight 370, would wash up along the coast of Africa and various islands. Now, nearly a decade after the disappearance, the first semblance of any good news for the families involved.
It has been about 10 years that the court finally opened the case, which we think is a relief and a turning point. But the deterioration of the living conditions of the families, that does make us feel very sad.
Details of the lawsuit remain vague, and NBC News has not seen the suit, but Chinese state media reports families are seeking up to $11 million each in damages for the failure to properly track the plane. Malaysia Air, along with two other companies at the center of the lawsuit, did not provide comment to NBC, but a representative from a fourth corporation, Boeing, told us, "Our thoughts continue to be with those who are on board MH370 and their loved ones." Some loved ones, though, still not satisfied with those thoughts.
We go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs every day to make a claim, and nobody cares about us.
Noah is joining us now. Noah, there is obviously no amount of money that could ever make these families whole again after what they've been through over the course of the last decade. You heard it there right at the end. They feel, it sounds like in many ways, powerless, voiceless here. This is one way that they can try to get some accountability. What is the likelihood that they will get what they're asking for based on the experts that you're talking to?
Well, Hallie, the Chinese legal system is anything but transparent, first off, we should say. But judges there do have a lot of discretion to award damages in cases that you might not see here in the United States, for instance. That said, the victims' families are looking for millions of dollars each, significantly more than the $50,000 each that they initially reported they were offered for their losses years ago. So they're looking for this money, and they tell AP that they expect these hearings to go on for several more weeks. Again, still searching for that first piece of closure in the last 10 years of pain.
Noah Pransky, thank you very much for that reporting. Still to come here on the show, a huge shift from healthy eating and exercise now. Why the CEO of Weight Watchers is apologizing tonight. What she's now saying about weight loss drugs. Coming up. The Weight Watchers CEO today saying the tried and true mantra of healthy eating and exercise, that focus, that intense focus, is actually, in her words, wrong. Listen to what she tells CNN.
I want to be the first to say I'm sorry. And we know better now. We will do better now. We needed to be the first to be proud and loud about the fact that we got it wrong in the past. We've been treating these medications like it's a vanity, and it's not. It's life-saving.
She's talking about the company's push this year into the weight loss drug market and those drugs overall. You know, this is a market that has been booming here. Weight Watchers bought Sequence. That's a telehealth company which connects people with some of those popular medicines. Ozempic, Wegovy, for example. I want to bring in Dr. Natalie Azar to talk this out with us. So what's so interesting about this interview is the head of this company that previously put some arm's length distance between its sort of philosophy and these weight loss drugs is now acknowledging, wait a second, we were wrong to do that in the first place. As a medical professional, did that surprise you? How do you see this?
Well, yeah, Hallie, maybe it surprised me a little bit, but I'm not disappointed by it. And I think what it really represents is an evolution in all of our, meaning our sort of anybody in the health and wellness or healthcare providers have really undergone this transformation in the last number of years, and sort of this change in the way we think about weight, overweight, and obesity, as not just a simple measurement of calories in versus calories out, but rather that there are significant metabolic and hormonal changes that can happen in certain individuals, not everybody, that make them really resistant to be able to lose weight, whether it's that extra 10, 15 pounds, or when they're significantly overweight, to be able to get their weight into a healthy, category or classification. And I think it's interesting that she points out that even those patients who are going to be taking those medications will still be counseled on appropriate, diet, nutrition and exercise and all of those things. And it doesn't need to be one or the other.
Let me play another little bit from you from this interview here for you. Listen.
This is sort of the direction this industry is going, with or without Weight Watchers.
I would say that's true. I would say that's true. And I think that people who are deniers about the fact that obesity is a chronic condition are going to be left behind.
It's the business perspective here because of the way that these weight loss drugs have just inverted the market. It feels like that's what she's getting at here, and that's where this conversation is going.
Right. Right. And, I will say that as a provider who doesn't prescribe these medications, but has a lot of patients who take them with either weight loss specialists or endocrinologists, there is a massive need, Hallie, for people and professionals who can counsel and manage these patients and follow them while they're taking the medications, nutritional counseling, all of those things, even sort of, support and all of that kind of stuff. And so I welcome that if a company like Weight Watchers that already has all of those things in place for patients in terms of support and nutritional guidance and things like that, and then has medical professionals who are trained to prescribe these medications, I only think that that's a good thing, because frankly speaking, I just don't think that there are enough, docs and NPs and nurses out there who can handle the volume of patients that actually need this kind of service.
And just stepping back big picture, and I'm not trying to get super philosophical here with you on this, but I do wonder what it says about this moment, right? And the way that even in the conversation, in the context that we're having here, the conversation in the context that the Weight Watchers head is having, the conversation around these drugs, it is still about getting this push, right, from the wellness and health field to get people in larger bodies into smaller bodies, even though so much of the science now shows that the way that we measure bodies is flawed. BMI, for example, and some of these indices, it doesn't tell the whole picture. It's just not the whole story.
I think that that's true. And I think that if you're going to get any pushback, it's going to be this sort of like relentless thing to get people to a certain number. But I mean, I think that in spite of that, Hallie, that the science very clearly bears out that overweight and obesity is absolutely associated with so many potential health risk factors, arthritis, certain kinds of arthritis and cancers and cardiovascular disease, that I think that it's okay to have a conversation about the fact that we do have a significant weight problem in this country, and that anything that we can do safely to get people to a healthier weight where we know that they won't, suffer those potential outcomes is an appropriate thing to talk about and to do.
Dr. Natalie Azar, great conversation as always. Thank you for talking us through it. Appreciate it. That does it for us for this hour. We've got a lot more coverage picking up right now. A new deal to extend the truce in Gaza is taking effect in just the last hour overseas, with the world's spotlight on the hostages, 11 of them arriving in Israel in just the last hour or so after being freed by Hamas. How many more may be released, with fighting paused now for the next couple days? Plus, the suspect in court today in the shooting of 3 students of Palestinian descent. Our team one-on-one with the victims' families, and more on why the Justice Department is investigating this as a possible hate crime. And former President Jimmy Carter set to make a very rare public appearance at services for his wife, Rosalind. We'll take you to Atlanta for the tributes planned to honor their 77-year marriage and her service to this country. Plus, record travel today, even after the busy holiday weekend, and a lot of people fighting their way home, also fighting snow, the potential of maybe 3 feet of it, even though it's technically still fall. We've got the latest on delays and the forecast. Plus, if you're stuck at the airport or in the snow, maybe you did some shopping. We'll go behind the scenes on some of the new ways Some companies are trying to get us to click on this Cyber Monday. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and starting right now, it looks like more hostages will be released, with that pause in the intense fighting inside Gaza set to potentially hold for at least the next 48 hours now, a truce extension. Take a look at some of this brand new video. It is just into us in the last hour and a half or so. These are some of the 11 newly released hostages here. You see them walking into, they're about to go into some Red Cross vans. We're being told those hostages are now back in Israel. We should note the footage that you're looking at here, it does appear to have been edited by Al Jazeera, which released it. Now, Israel and Hamas are coming to terms, as we've said, on this other truce deal. This one's set to last 2 days on top of the 4 days we've already seen. And that new agreement coming right as the other agreement was set to run out. It is now after midnight in the region, meaning if they hadn't come to this extension, the truce would be over. That is not the case now after the release of 50 hostages kidnapped by Hamas last month and 39 Palestinian prisoners in Israel. To that end, look at some of these emotional reunions of people held in Hamas captivity for nearly 7 weeks. A 9-year-old girl, here she is, Emily Hand. She's running into her father's arms. She's hugging her sister. 4-year-old Abigail Adan, released in just the last 24 hours. There she is, smiling with her aunt and uncle in an Israeli hospital. Both of her parents are dead. They were both killed in the October 7th terror attack in Israel. So with all of this, the bottom line right now is that the biggest diplomatic breakthrough in the Israel-Hamas war so far looks like it'll last at least a little longer. Still, none of it settles some of the key questions we have tonight. Like, what are the next 48 hours actually going to look like? Are they going to look like the last 4 days that we've seen? Who are the 20 hostages that the Pentagon says Hamas will release? And who are the Palestinian prisoners set to be freed? Hamas and Egypt both say 33 Palestinians will be released. You've also got the situation inside Gaza where hundreds of trucks are flooding in, bringing food and the water and the gas that people there so desperately need. And through it all, a sense of foreboding about where this war goes next, with the Israeli prime minister reiterating his goal to eliminate Hamas, saying his military will, in his words, demilitarize and de-radicalize Gaza before it can rebuild the Strip. We've got team coverage tonight. Aaron McLaughlin live for us in Tel Aviv, Ali Rafa here in Washington. But Aaron, let me start with you. This truce extension, essentially, 2 more days now, thanks to, in many ways, the critical role that Qatar is playing here. Talk us through some of the diplomacy and what this means realistically for some of those hostages who are being held now, but who could get out in the next 2 days.
Well, Hallie, first, I think it's worth stating that this is a remarkable moment. This is the 4th day of a ceasefire that is holding, something that many in this region did not think possible, including some of the families of the hostages. I was talking to one cousin of one of the hostages, and he was just telling me that never in his wildest dreams did he think there could be a deal between Israel and Hamas that resulted in a ceasefire, that resulted in the release of 50 hostages, and that aid would then get into Gaza. He said that was just unthinkable just a few weeks ago, and yet here we are talking about an extension of this moment. Now, that extension was already built into the original deal. The original deal was 4-day temporary ceasefire. 50 Israeli hostages would be released by Hamas in exchange for 150 Palestinians held in Israeli jails. We are waiting for the final confirmation that the final Palestinians have been released. Once that happens, this exchange is over. And then we're going to be looking at this extension, which essentially amounts to 10 hostages released for every additional day of ceasefire, what Qatar has managed to broker with the help of the United States. We understand that senior White House officials have been heavily involved in this process, as has the president himself. It essentially will result in 2 additional days of pause, and then beyond that, the possibility of further extension. This could go on into the future, and it's giving a lot of people, especially families of the hostages, 139 hostages estimated to be remaining in Gaza, hope tonight. Hallie.
Aaron, we've seen some of these incredible moments, these incredible reunions, including one, and I want to remind people of it. It's Emily Hand, and that is somebody who you brought us on this show, the story of her father, who a couple of weeks ago was in agony. I mean, he was in hell, wondering if he would see her again, wondering how she was doing. It's that moment there. She's hugging. That was her dad that you talked to. I think that was her aunt here. It is, you talk about the extraordinary diplomatic breakthrough to have 4 days of a pause in fighting with 2 more potentially to come. Extraordinary moments on the ground in Israel tonight, too.
Yeah, that's right. And Emily's story is extraordinary. On October 7th, she was staying at a friend's house and Hamas stormed her kibbutz. She was staying at a friend's house with her friend's mother. All three of them were kidnapped, but initially her father, in the days after, was told that she was dead. And that is what he believed for 3 weeks, until the Israeli officials approached him and said they had reason to believe that she was taken to Gaza. They did not find her body on the kibbutz. And then there was an eyewitness account that she, in fact, was seen going into Gaza. All of that was found out weeks later. And that's when I met Thomas Hand. And I asked him at the time, do you have a message for Emily? And this is what he told me. What do you want to say to Emily?
We love you. We're waiting for you. Be strong. We know you're strong.
So when you see the emotion on his face there, these reunions, the joy, just makes it that much more powerful. And it is worth noting for those hostages still inside Gaza, according to the ceasefire agreement, the Red Cross should be able to visit every single one of them and give their families in Israel that proof of life that they're so desperately needing at this point. A lot of these families have no idea if their loved ones are alive or dead, Hallie.
Aaron McLaughlin, still so much pain, so much trauma there where you are. Thank you very much for the updates. We're going to be watching, obviously, all of it as it unfolds. I want to bring in Hallie Rafa, who is here in Washington, just outside the White House. And Hallie, in just the last few minutes, we've learned about multiple calls today between top White House aides and Qataris as this truce extension was getting hammered out. Talk to us about the role that the White House, the role that the Biden administration is playing here behind the scenes, and then publicly as well, with the Secretary of State set to head back to the region.
Absolutely, Hallie. This is diplomacy at the highest levels taking place. A White House official is telling us that over the course of the morning and afternoon, senior officials held 4 calls with the Qatari prime minister trying to finalize this deal, trying to find out what it actually entailed. And they say that that engagement extended to the CIA director as well, who we know earlier this month visited not just Israel, but also Qatar to try to nudge these talks along. And as you said, we expect this week for Secretary of State Antony Blinkin to return to Israel as well as the West Bank to talk about not only extending this ceasefire even further, but also talking about preventing this crisis from widening and what the future of Gaza looks like when this is all over, whenever it does end. As far as the president's direct involvement, officials have been saying that he played a key role in not just brokering the original ceasefire deal, but also ironing out the obstacles that took place on Saturday when there was an hours-long delay in Hamas's release of Saturday's hostages. They say he also played a critical role in brokering this extension. The president saying earlier today in a statement talking about the benefits of an extension of this ceasefire, saying, quote, the U.S. is taking full advantage of the pause in fighting to increase the amount of humanitarian aid moving into Gaza, and we will continue our efforts to build a future of peace and dignity for the Palestinian people. The president saying he's been working the phones in recent days, talking with the leaders of Qatar, of Jordan, of Egypt, and of course of Israel. He had a phone call with Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday where, according to a White House readout, the two agreed to stay in very close contact over the next few days, both of them agreeing that their work is not done. The president saying that he will not rest until all of Hamas's hostages are released. And of course, that includes what we have heard today. The U.S. estimates to be 8 or 9 Americans. U.S. officials were watching and waiting to see whether they'd be among the hostages released today. And of course, we didn't see that happen. But they say they are still very optimistic and hopeful that those Americans, some of them will be among those released as part of this extended ceasefire. Hallie.
Hallie Rafa, live for us tonight in Washington. Thank you. Also here at home, the suspect in the triple shooting of 3 students of Palestinian descent is pleading not guilty today to attempted murder charges. That's as the Justice Department is looking into whether or not this attack on a quiet Vermont street was motivated by hate. That's something the mother of one victim believes is the case, telling our team that this is her nightmare come true.
My husband thought that he would be safe in the U.S., thought that he would be safe at Brown, thought he would be safe in Vermont. This man chose to come up to them and shoot them. whatever, we will find out the reason why, but it was a vicious, targeted crime.
All of it as we're getting some chilling new details about the suspect here, Jason Eaton. According to documents telling ATF agents who came to his door Sunday, he'd been, in his words, waiting for them. Before police went in, they found several guns, a distinctive type of ammo that they say helped tie him to the shooting. Eaton's being held without bail. He faces 3 counts of attempted murder, charges that could put him away for life. Those 3 students are still in the hospital tonight, with a relative telling us one of them may never walk again. NBC's Stephanie Gosk is in Burlington for us. And Steph, we're starting to get more of an idea of what happened in the shooting, who the suspect is, and importantly here, some of these questions and clues around whether this was a hate crime, as some of these family members, as you just heard, are talking about.
Yeah, you know, Hallie, a lot of people are looking at it in that perspective, but law enforcement says they do not have the evidence to charge a hate crime, and you have to have very specific evidence to charge a hate crime. There are federal investigators looking into that. What we do know, as you mentioned, we have some detail of what they found of evidence to prove that there was attempted murder in this case. They found the guns, multiple guns, 3 shotguns in his home, according to police, as well as the pistol allegedly used in the shooting, ammunition. We've also learned that Jason Eaton was let go from his job earlier this month. And according to the affidavit, there are some details about what happened that night. According to the students who were shot, one of them telling police that they were walking, he saw a man run towards them in a hoodie and just open fire, not saying anything at all. And, you know, you play some sound from Hisham Aratani's mom, and he is a student at Brown University. He has a double major in archaeology and math, and now he has a bullet lodged in his spine, and they are fearing tonight that he may not walk again, although they still have hope that that may not be the case. Hallie?
We've seen, and Steph, you have covered weeks of protests around the country and the fear that that turns into violence. I wonder what you're hearing from folks you're talking to about some of those concerns, and I'm speaking more broadly here.
Yeah, and like I say, although we don't have those hate charges right now, people are looking at this certainly within that prism of the hate that we've been seeing very often on college campuses. As you mentioned, you know, I spoke with the Dean of International Affairs and Studies at Princeton. She is a Palestinian American, and she told me that she actually went to the same school that these students went to 30 years ago, that she is in effect these kids 30 years ago. She came to this country looking for democracy and freedom, and that this current environment that we are in is undermining these shared principles that we all have. And instead, what we have is this bifurcated argument and hate on both sides. And the concern all along has been that that hate could turn into violence, and that is what we saw in the most unlikely of places here in Burlington, Vermont over the weekend, Hallie.
Stephanie Gosk, live for us there in Burlington. Steph, thank you. Tonight, new concerns that this Israel-Hamas war could escalate after a couple of missiles were fired toward a Navy ship in the Middle East. Fired toward the ship. They did not actually hit the ship, but you can see it on the map here. The Department of Defense says the missiles came from a part of Yemen controlled by the Iranian-backed rebels called the Houthis. So the ship was in the Gulf of Aden. That's on the kind of bottom of your screen there. It's just south of Yemen. It's just north of Somalia. So you can see that regionally compared to where Israel, where Gaza is. The timing here is important, okay, because just hours before this whole thing went down, that same Navy ship had been responding to a call from a commercial tanker that was apparently under a pirate attack. I want to bring in NBC's Pentagon correspondent, Courtney Kuby, who has been covering all of this. And it is, just stipulate, right, it is a big deal. Explain to people, though, who are going, okay, wait a second. I get what's happening with Israel and Hamas in that region, in that area of the region. Explain how what's happening here in the Gulf of Aden could be potentially linked and the way that this is possibly interconnected.
So there's 2 big issues here. And the first one is these ballistic missiles, close-range ballistic missiles fired from, as you said, Hallie, from Yemen, believed to be fired by Houthi rebels. Why that's important is they're an Iranian-backed rebel group, Iranian, often trained, funded, equipped, and they are firing close-range ballistic missiles towards a U.S. Navy ship. Now, that in and of itself is significant. The missiles landed about 10 nautical miles away, so they weren't ever really a direct threat to the ship. And in fact, officials are making it very clear that they were fired towards the ship and not at it. But it really just fits in this pattern that we've seen in recent weeks of increasingly aggressive behavior by these Houthi rebels. Frankly, it all starts back on the attacks on October 7th, which goes to the larger regional conflict here. Now, the Houthis have demonstrated not only more aggressive behavior in recent weeks since the attacks in Israel on October 7th, but they've also shown more advances in their capabilities. So not just these close-range ballistic missiles, but drones being fired towards Israel, having to be shot down by the U.S. in one case, and also more precise targeting that we've seen here since the October 7th attacks. The second big story, Hallie, though, is this tanker, this commercial tanker. Now, initially, the U.S. was saying that they weren't exactly sure who hijacked this tanker on Sunday. We are now told by defense officials they believe they are Somalis. Now, why that's significant is this may be an increase in attacks or Somali piracy, which, frankly, we haven't really seen in recent years. But you could see from the map that you showed earlier, Hallie, that in this region, it's right off the coast of the northern coast of Somalia, that it would make sense, and we might see that sorts of activity. Now, defense officials here saying the two incidents, while they occurred in close proximity, they do not believe they are linked, Hallie. That was a lot of information all at once that we just gave you. So I hope our viewers understand.
We would expect literally nothing less from you, Cora. But let me ask this, right? Because I do think that maybe something that people think about is, okay, part of the challenge here may be, how does the U.S. military show that it is displeased, right? In other words, a retaliatory strike seems way perhaps not proportionate here, right? And there's a whole bunch of other geopolitical grenades that could go off if that were to be the case, right? But what is your sense of the way that the U.S. is kind of showing, we do not like this, do not do this again?
So the way they've been showing that in Iraq and Syria, because we've seen now 73 attacks against bases housing Americans in Iraq and Syria, the way that the U.S. has done that with a series of retaliatory strikes in Syria and even several in Iraq against the groups who've been carrying out these sorts of attacks. So in this case, other Iranian-backed militia groups, particularly Kataib Hezbollah. But in this case, we have not seen that sort of response from the U.S. directed at the Houthis. Now, I will say defense officials are not ruling out the possibility that there could be some sort of military action. We've not seen it yet. The real concern here, though, when you're talking about the attacks on the bases in Iraq and Syria, when you're talking about this maritime activity, is the possibility that one of these attacks will be successful, and that could lead to a real escalation in the region, Hallie.
Right. Courtney Kube live for us at the Pentagon, working your sources, I know, as always. Court, thanks. So tonight, the holiday hangover, travel-wise, is happening with millions of people taking the day off to hit the roads and catch flights after a record-breaking Thanksgiving weekend. American Airlines actually says that today, along with yesterday, are their most traveled days ever. Can you believe it? And we're learning nearly 3 million people have been screened at airports yesterday, per the TSA. That's up, they say, something like 10% since this time last year. All these folks, or at least some of them, are making their way home in the middle of some messy weather. Temperatures below average for this time of year in the Midwest and the East Coast. Wind chills in the teens in Chicago today. They got some snow this weekend, but it may be weekday snow in the Great Lakes, with some 5 million people under snow alerts in Ohio, Pennsylvania, upstate New York. Some of them are already seeing some of it, and ultimately they could end up with 3 feet. Marissa Parra is live for us at Reagan International. Meteorologist Bill Cairns is here for us, too. Bill, we'll get to you in a second, but first, Marissa, let's bring you in. Some of the busiest travel days, they're happening in less than ideal conditions. Talk us through what you're seeing. Talk us through how delays look right now.
Hey, Hallie, I will say I've been keeping an eye on this for the past couple of days, and at its peak yesterday, I really didn't see the delays go higher than 700. And we see some pockets of delays in the Midwest because of wintry weather, and some pockets of delays in the Northeast because of rain and maybe an icy mix here and there. But that's really striking when you consider the fact that the FAA is reporting less than 1.5% of all flights in the country yesterday were canceled. That is really striking when you remember that yesterday was a record-breaking day. Over 2.9 million TSA passengers screened in just one day. That did, in fact, surpass the record that was set in June earlier this year. In fact, the TSA said that 7 out of 10 of their busiest days on record have been this year. And so that's really tracking with what we're seeing is an increase in people flying. We know that the majority of people over Thanksgiving holiday and holidays in general tend to take to the roads. Over 49 million across the Thanksgiving holiday took to the roads. But those records are really being set in the air, Hallie. And what what I will also add on the end of this, you mentioned people taking off today to travel. I've actually met a number of people who are actually working today and say that, they're remote working, so they're able to travel while they're still on the clock. And so that is kind of in keeping with what we're seeing and what I've kind of been reporting on over the last couple of years is, AAA is saying that Monday and just in general days, I saw that face you had just now. Yeah, I mean, the way that we used to be able to predict travel. Yeah, no judgment. Listen, they're still getting their work done and they think that they're beating the traffic. The problem is everyone's kind of thinking the same way. So Monday, which didn't used to be as busy as it is now increasingly become a more common day for return travel, Hallie.
That's super interesting. It is a sign of the shifting times that we live in. Marissa Parra, live for us there at Reagan. Marissa, good to see you. Thank you. Bill Cairns did not work remote today. You have been in the studio all day,
Is that
friend.
an option? Is it an option, Hallie? Could I?
We're gonna do it, me and you, one day.
Yeah, we'll just do sweatpants in the basement one day, like old school COVID. Yes.
No, nothing wrong with that. And you may need sweatpants if you're in some of these spots set to see these colder than average temperatures.
Yes.
Did you like that? That's called a transition.
That is a good transition. Yeah, we're going to need more than just the sweatpants. Maybe, get the thermals on underneath. It's -4 in International Fall. So this is like, okay, it's winter. Now it's getting serious. We're cranking the heat up and we got the fireplace going. It feels like 4 in Minneapolis. Chicago now feels like 9. So you got the full winter gear out for you, the kids, and everyone else. And that's why we're triggering the lake effect snows. There's no ice on the lakes yet. It's been a very warm November and fall. And so the warmish lakes and the cold air over the top, we get lake effect snow. This is kind of late. Typically, we get some of these events in the middle of November. So this is the end of November. But this is the first significant one. Driving in south of Interstate 90, south of Buffalo, is not a fun drive right now. That's where we have the heaviest snow, maybe even thunder snow at times this evening. And that's where we have lake effect snow warnings. Cleveland, Erie, just south of Buffalo. Downtown Buffalo is not going to get into it, it doesn't appear. Syracuse up to Watertown is the other area that you don't want to be driving north here of Syracuse. That's where we could see 2 to 3 feet in the Tug Hill Plateau. That's the most famous spot there is for lake effect snow, so this is not a big surprise. And these snow towns south of Buffalo, they've had green grass. So, Hallie, they're looking at this like, okay, it's about time.
What about what we should expect to see later in the week, Bill? Because it's going to get pretty messy out west.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people saying, so this first cold shot, is this the beginning of like winter, or when are we going to start seeing snowstorms? Well, the chill is here, and then it's kind of gone. So tomorrow, Tuesday, it's chilly all the way through Atlanta, even Florida standards. It's a chilly day, but the sun's going to go to work. There's no reinforcing cold shot coming. Wednesday is still pretty cold. D.C., 41 degrees is much colder than it should be. But then as we go towards the end of the week and towards the weekend, Richmond up into the 60s, New York into the mid-50s, Chicago in the 40s is kind of, seasonable. Memphis gets up to 62. And anyone wondering, well, how does December shape up? The first and second week of December, it looks really warm, almost coast to coast. No signs of any Arctic air, let alone Canadian air. Above average temperatures. This goes through the 7th of December and even past this, Hallie. Snow lovers and winter sports lovers, the complaint department's going to start getting full shortly.
Well, we'll check back with them in February and see how they're doing then.
That's true.
Bill Cairns,
it's early.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Okay.
Coming up, a lot more to get to here on the show, including thousands of prisoners on the loose and dozens of people dead after an attack in Sierra Leone, why the government there is blaming renegade soldiers. Plus, some Google accounts are going to get deleted Friday. We'll tell you which ones are most at risk in a minute. Right now, we are in the middle of what could be the biggest Cyber Monday ever as a bunch of people start to get off work, maybe hit up some stores online, because I know you weren't doing that while you were being paid at the office. You sure weren't. Some experts say that sales today alone could pass $12 billion, with some estimates already projecting that in just the last 5 days, you see it here, sales are up online more than 5% from last year. It's partly thanks to some new marketing techniques being used to try to lure shoppers in. Here's Brian Chung with more.
Well, hello from Robbinsville, New Jersey. We are at an Amazon fulfillment center. This is one of many across the country that could be processing the packages that you're ordering on this Cyber Monday. We're seeing an expected $12 billion in spend, according to Adobe Analytics. If that does come in, that would be a record amount of spending for this particular shopping holiday. The National Retail Federation saying it expects over 70 million Americans to participate in the deals today. We're seeing 60% off at Target. Target, 80% off some items at Walmart, and Amazon is unveiling deals every 5 minutes. They want to make sure that people are coming back to the site many times across the day. Experts are telling us that Cyber Monday is the better holiday to shop if you're just perusing or browsing, because the amount of deals and the breadth of the deals tends to be wider than on Black Friday, where the discounts will be deep, but they might be a little bit more targeted. And of course, as we are talking about Cyber Monday, shipping is very much a big part of the conversation. One research firm says that package carriers are expected to be able to handle all the capacity. They're apparently more than able to handle what they expect this season. Amazon says that facilities like this are regionally focused, a strategy that they say will be able to get those packages to your doorstep on time. Back to you.
Our thanks to Brian Chung for that. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, at least 20 people were killed in an attack on a military barracks, a prison, and some other spots in Sierra Leone. Something like 2,000 prisoners escaped from behind bars. The government says it's because of what they describe as renegade soldiers, and says most of the people leading the attack were arrested. Number 2, the Vatican says the Pope's postponing some meetings because of breathing problems and lung inflammation. The Vatican says he doesn't have pneumonia, but did have a tube put in to get some antibiotics into his system. This comes after years of health problems for the Pope, who will turn 87 next month. Number 3, a Southwest Airlines passenger went to the hospital after opening the emergency exit and climbing onto the plane's wing. Officials say this was a plane that was parked at the main airport in New Orleans, or at least it wasn't moving when this all happened. You can see it here. They say there are no criminal charges over this incident at this point. Number 4, Google will start deleting inactive accounts starting on Friday. It says those accounts are at a higher risk of security problems because of stuff like old passwords, maybe you don't have 2-factor authentication. If you have an account and you don't want it to get deleted, you've got to sign in at least once every 2 years. Number 5, all right, are you ready for some big news? Merriam-Webster's word of the year, it is authentic. Authentic. Merriam-Webster says there is a substantial increase, quote unquote, in searches for that this year, tied to things like AI, social media. Some other top contenders were deepfake, coronation, and Riz, which obviously would have been my personal pick. So, NBC News is confirming tonight that former President Carter is in Atlanta. He has made the trip from Plains, Georgia to Atlanta, set to go to services for his late wife and former First Lady Rosalind Carter. This would be a very rare public appearance for former President Carter. He is 99 years old. He went into hospice care, remember, back in February. You're seeing him here with his wife, Rosalind. He just was so in love with her. This is one of the few times they've been seen in public this year at the Plains Peanut Festival a couple months ago. The next few days include a full slate of observances and tributes for the former First Lady, who died last Sunday at the age of 96. President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, their spouses are set to attend, along with other dignitaries from all over the country. NBC's Blaine Alexander is in Atlanta for us tonight. And it is, of course, not surprising that a spouse would attend the services of their spouse. That is, I think, something a lot of people understand. It is rare for Jimmy Carter to appear publicly, period, Blaine.
Absolutely, especially, Hallie, when you consider the fact that he entered hospice care back in February. He's 99 years old. And so for him to come out, not only, he's expected to attend tomorrow, we're talking about a rather lengthy ceremony. We're talking about something with a lot of people there, and just the sheer fact that he made it to Atlanta from Plains, Georgia. We're talking about a nearly 3-hour car ride. Not sure how he was transported here, but all of this certainly is just absolutely extraordinary when you think of a former president making an appearance like this. So let's start with what we saw today with the ceremonies for Rosalind Carter. It really is special because here in the state of Georgia, certainly she's honored as the First Lady that Georgia birthed. So we've really kind of seen this tour almost throughout the state, starting in her beloved home of Plains, Georgia, and then making its way to Southwestern State University, of course, her alma mater, where wreaths were laid, and then making the way to the Carter Center. Tomorrow, we're going to see really almost a parade of White House occupants, past and present. You talked about Joe Biden and the First Lady. We're also going to see the former President Bill Clinton, former First Lady Hillary Clinton, and then all of the remaining former First Ladies, Michelle Obama, Laura Bush, Melania Trump. All of them are expected to be in attendance tomorrow, Hallie. And then finally, on the third day, the former First Lady is going to be taken back down to Plains, Georgia, to her beloved hometown, where there will be another ceremony there, and she will be laid to rest. Now, of course, as you mentioned, all eyes are going to be on her husband of 77 years, the former president. He is expected to attend tomorrow. tomorrow. Still unknown whether or not he's going to make a public appearance in Plains, Georgia on Wednesday. But again, certainly extraordinary that we're expecting to see him in public tomorrow honoring his late wife, Hallie.
That is for sure. Blaine Alexander live for us there in Atlanta. Blaine, thank you. When we come back, there's a mysterious outbreak of kids getting sick in China. What officials think is behind it and why it's overwhelming hospitals. The mystery of why so many kids in China are getting sick with symptoms similar to pneumonia now has health experts around the world sounding the alarm after video emerged like this, showing ERs packed with parents and their kids. The World Health Organization now saying it wants more info, more data from the Chinese government about what's going on with these multiple respiratory illnesses. Keep in mind, China is now entering its first winter since dropping pretty strict COVID restrictions last year. NBC's Janice Mackey-Freyer has more from Beijing.
An outbreak of respiratory illness across Beijing and northern China has triggered concern at the World Health Organization, which had requested more detailed information from Chinese health authorities about what doctors here have been dealing with. Hospitals in Beijing and in other cities have been swamped for weeks, mostly children needing treatment for pneumonia-like symptoms. Emergency rooms have been so overwhelmed that the health ministry ordered that fever clinics be open to handle demand. Now, the rising number of cases prompted the WHO to ask for more data. What Chinese health authorities say was a routine request. They said they have found no unusual or novel diseases. This is Chinese officials talking, adding that the flood of cases are the usual mix of known viruses as well as mycoplasma pneumonia or walking pneumonia and RSV. All of it linked to the first full cold and flu season here since COVID restrictions were lifted last December. An alert last week on ProMed, a global reporting system for emerging outbreaks, had health experts worried about quote-unquote undiagnosed pneumonia in China because that's what COVID started as before it was called COVID. Now, cases here actually started back in October, and there have been a lot of videos on social media over the past few weeks. Health authorities are now asking parents to hold off on taking their kids to the hospital if their symptoms are mild to avoid those long wait times and the risk of cross-infection.
Our thanks to Janice Mackey-Freyer for that. NBC News covers hundreds of other international stories every day. And because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our international teams have done it for you. Here's some of what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of India, rescuers are now turning to digging, just like with shovels, to try to get out those workers who have been trapped in a tunnel for more than 2 weeks. Remember, we've been telling you about it. 41 construction workers got stuck after a landslide caused part of this tunnel to collapse. Officials are hoping that this hand digging will be the very last phase in the rescue operation. Out of Russia and Ukraine, more than 500,000 people are out of power after a big storm hit parts of both countries. The Moscow area getting something like 10 inches of snow. These are people getting evacuated by emergency workers you're seeing. Officials say it's one of the most powerful storms that has ever hit that region. And out of Indonesia, a critically endangered Sumatran rhino is successfully giving birth to a 55-pound boy, just the second of his kind, born in Indonesia this year. Right now, there are fewer than 50 animals in that entire species all across the world. A new guest visiting Israel and its leaders today. Not a politician, not a president, a different kind of leader. Elon Musk, the social media Tesla mogul. Here he is with the prime minister walking around the ruins of houses in one of the kibbutzim hit hardest from that October 7th terror attack. The Israeli government says they showed him evidence of the atrocities committed by Hamas. If you're wondering, what is Elon Musk doing in Israel? What was that really on people's bingo cards? Think about where we were just about a week ago, just over a week ago, when Musk was getting hammered from all corners for agreeing with a tweet about an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Advertisers pausing any business with his platform, with X. Now he's talking with the Israeli president about just that.
Jew hate impacts the entire notion of behavior of human beings in so many places around the world, and you have a huge role to play, and I think we need to fight it together, because under the platforms which you lead, unfortunately, there's a harboring of a lot of old hate.
I want to bring in NBC Tech correspondent Jake Ward, who is joining us now. Okay, so Jake, a couple of threads to pull on here, starting with the one that we just laid out here. The idea that a week ago, Elon Musk was getting slammed from all corners for agreeing with this anti-Semitic tweet, for allowing X to become a place where anti-Semitism ran rampant. Now here he is sitting in Israel with leaders there. Is it an apology tour? How should we be looking at this?
You know, Hallie, it is, always hard to decode this stuff directly, but Elon Musk did come as close as one could come to admitting that this was something of an apology tour. I mean, as you laid out there, right, he's been under heat since that anti-Semitic conspiracy theory and his backing up of it on his own platform has driven away advertisers in droves. And he, went on to try to explain on Twitter, I'm not anti-Semitic, people are misconstruing my words, I'm all about positivity and creating a prosperous future for everyone. But he seems to have felt that that was not enough, making this trip to Israel, touring the Kfar Aza kibbutz that you mentioned there, and then in the end, he put out on X, actions speak louder than words. So this does seem to have been a pretty clear, effort on his part to clear the air and be seen to be an ally with Israel at this time, Hallie.
What does Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu get out of this visit?
Well, this is the crazy part, right, is that you've got this total, red carpet dignitary kind of visit. I mean, Netanyahu giving up his day, a full security detail, standing under the umbrella in the kibbutz with him. What is this for? Well, it's not entirely, coincidental, because Elon Musk is not just the CEO of SpaceX and Tesla and X. He's also the CEO of Starlink, right? The largest communications satellite platform in the world, more than 4,300 satellites. You remember back when Russia invaded Ukraine, it became a big issue because Ukraine was essentially denied use of Starlink by Elon Musk, and it blew a hole in their capability to make certain attacks. Well, here, he seems to have sat down with the communications minister of Netanyahu and come up with an agreement. And in a tweet, Shlomo Karhi, the communications minister, said, Elon Musk, I congratulate you for reaching a principal understanding with the Ministry of Communications. As a result of this agreement, Starlink satellite units will only be operated in Israel with the approval of the Ministry of Communications, including the Gaza Strip. And I don't think it's coincidental here, Hallie. You always have to read between the lines on these things. But at the end of that tweet, Shlomo also says, during your time in Israel, I hope that it will serve as a springboard for future endeavors and as well as enhance your relationship with the Jewish people, kind of nodding at the problems he's had on X and now having secured this major strategic win for the Netanyahu administration by allowing, by forcing Elon Musk to basically hand over access to Starlink to Israeli authorities here.
It's not the first time, too, that Elon Musk has gotten involved in geopolitics. I think back to, obviously, him, Starlink, Ukraine, I guess it was months ago or maybe a year ago now, Jake. You talk about the issues with X. In many ways, it seems like the damage has been done here from Elon Musk's management and leadership of that platform over the last, X period of time. The New York Times has some numbers out today showing that X could lose something like, look at this, $75 million in ad money because you have all these advertisers pulling out, as we've covered here on this show. If the policies on X don't change, what's going to make a difference here, even despite these international tours that Musk is doing?
Well, at this point, stemming the bleeding, it's just not clear at all how he'll do that, right? This is not a company that can afford to lose tens of millions of dollars in advertising revenue. And going abroad and getting, in this case, inextricably linked with the war in Israel, I don't think that's going to turn around. I don't think any observers are saying it's going to get turned around. I mean, he is just getting more and more twisted up in his leadership of X. And, at a time when that company cannot afford it, and now to be binding his other companies up in the same kind of issue, it is just a very, very messy state of affairs over there, Hallie.
Jake Ward, thank you very much. Following all of it for us tonight. Coming up, a lot more to get to here on the show, including a new twist in that Malaysia Airlines flight that mysteriously disappeared a decade ago. We'll tell you what's happening today. You're not going to want to miss this. Coming up in just a sec. Back to Beijing now. We're nearly a decade after flight MH370 disappeared. Some new developments now related to that mysterious Malaysian Air apparent crash. You probably remember this story. It was everywhere. It was world news for weeks, for months, after this plane seemed to fall out of the sky. No trace, nothing turning up after this search and rescue. The 239 people on board never found. The whole thing spawning a host of conspiracy theories and years of trauma for the victims' families. And today, a new twist, with many of those family members now in court, suing the airline and the makers of the plane for millions. Here's Noah Pransky.
The biggest mystery of 2014, still largely unsolved today.
Malaysia Airlines 777 has been lost.
A massive multinational search.
Not a shred of debris from the aircraft has been spotted or found.
Families of those missing passengers still seeking answers nearly a decade later, beginning another process this week, seeking compensation. According to Reuters, they're asking a Chinese court to force 4 companies to pay them millions in damages.
I ask for the restart of the search and also for Malaysia Airlines to reestablish communication with us and provide us with psychological assistance.
In March of 2014, Flight 370 vanished just 38 minutes after taking off from Kuala Lumpur en route to Beijing. What followed was one of the largest search missions the world has ever seen. 8 countries, 19 ships, 22 airplanes, scouring almost 5 million square miles of ocean. All turning up nothing. There was wall-to-wall media coverage. But as days turned into weeks, then into months, new questions arose as to how a plane with radio and black box equipment could just vanish. Social media then stoked the flames of conspiracy, including one discredited theory the plane safely landed at a secret location. But officials were unconvinced.
All 239 of the passengers and crew are presumed to have lost their lives.
And every few months after that, another piece of debris, believed to be from Flight 370, would wash up along the coast of Africa and various islands. Now, nearly a decade after the disappearance, the first semblance of any good news for the families involved.
It has been about 10 years that the court finally opened the case, which we think is a relief and a turning point. But the deterioration of the living conditions of the families, that does make us feel very sad.
Details of the lawsuit remain vague, and NBC News has not seen the suit, but Chinese state media reports families are seeking up to $11 million each in damages for the failure to properly track the plane. Malaysia Air, along with 2 other companies at the center of the lawsuit, did not provide comment to NBC, but a representative from a 4th corporation, Boeing, told us our thoughts continue to be with those who are on board MH370 and their loved ones. Some loved ones, though, still not satisfied with those thoughts.
We go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs every day to make a claim, and nobody cares about us.
Noah is joining us now. Noah, there is obviously no amount of money that could ever make these families whole again after what they've been through over the course of the last decade. You heard it there right at the end. They feel, it sounds like in many ways, powerless, voiceless here. This is one way that they can try to get some accountability. What is the likelihood that they will get what they're asking for based on the experts that you're talking to?
Well, Hallie, the Chinese legal system is anything but transparent, first off, we should say. But judges there do have a lot of discretion to award damages in cases that you might not see here in the United States, for instance. That said, the victims' families are looking for millions of dollars each, significantly more than the $50,000 each that they initially reported they were offered for their losses years ago. So they're looking for this money, and they tell AP that they expect these hearings to go on for several more weeks. Again, still searching for that first piece of closure in the last 10 years of pain.
Noah Pransky, thank you very much for that reporting. Still to come here on the show, a huge shift from healthy eating and exercise now. Why the CEO of Weight Watchers is apologizing tonight. What she's now saying about weight loss drugs. Coming up. The Weight Watchers CEO today saying the tried and true mantra of healthy eating and exercise, that focus, that intense focus, is actually, in her words, wrong. Listen to what she tells CNN.
I want to be the first to say I'm sorry. And we know better now. We will do better now. We needed to be the first to be proud and loud about the fact that we got it wrong in the past. We've been treating these medications like it's a vanity, and it's not. It's life-saving.
She's talking about the company's push this year to the weight loss drug market and those drugs overall. You know, this is a market that has been booming here. Weight Watchers bought Sequence. That's a telehealth company which connects people with some of those popular medicines, Ozempic, Wegovy, for example. I want to bring in Dr. Natalie Azar to talk this out with us. So what's so interesting about this interview is the head of this company that previously put some arm's length distance between its sort of philosophy and these weight loss drugs is now acknowledging, wait a second, we were wrong to do that in the first place. As a medical professional, did that surprise you? How do you see this?
Well, yeah, Hallie, maybe it surprised me a little bit, but I'm not disappointed by it. And I think what it really represents is an evolution in all of our, meaning our sort of anybody in the health and wellness or healthcare providers have really undergone this transformation in the last number of years, and sort of this change in the way we think about weight, overweight, and obesity as not just a simple measurement of calories in versus calories out, but rather that there are significant metabolic and hormonal changes that can happen in certain individuals, not everybody, that make them really resistant to be able to lose weight, whether it's that extra 10, 15 pounds, or when they're significantly overweight, to be able to get their weight into a healthy, category or classification. And I think it's interesting that she points out that even those patients who are going to be taking those medications will still be counseled on appropriate, diet, nutrition and exercise and all of those things. And it doesn't need to be one or the other.
Let me play another little bit from you from this interview here for you. Listen.
This is sort of the direction this industry is going, with or without Weight Watchers.
I would say that's true. I would say that's true. And I think that people who are deniers about the fact that obesity is a chronic condition are going to be left behind.
It's the business perspective here because of the way that these weight loss drugs have just inverted the market. It feels like that's what she's getting at here, and that's where this conversation is going.
Right. Right. And, I will say that as a provider who doesn't prescribe these medications, but has a lot of patients who take them with either weight loss specialists or endocrinologists, there is a massive need, Hallie, for people and professionals who can counsel and manage these patients and follow them while they're taking the medications, nutritional counseling, all of those things, even sort of, support and all of that kind of stuff. And so I welcome that if a company like Weight Watchers that already has all of those things in place for patients in terms of support and nutritional guidance and things like that, and then has medical professionals who are trained to prescribe these medications, I only think that that's a good thing, because frankly speaking, I just don't think that there are enough, docs and NPs and nurses out there who can handle the volume of patients that actually need this kind of service.
And just stepping back big picture, and I'm not trying to get super philosophical here with you on this, but I do wonder what it says about this moment, right? And the way that even in the conversation, in the context that we're having here, the conversation in the context that the Weight Watchers head is having, the conversation around these drugs, it is still about getting this push, right, from the wellness and health field to get people in larger bodies into smaller bodies, even though so much of the science now shows that the way that we measure bodies is flawed. BMI, for example, and some of these indices, it doesn't tell the whole picture. It's just not the whole story.
I think that that's true. And I think that if you're going to get any pushback, it's going to be this sort of like relentless thing to get people to a certain number. But I mean, I think that in spite of that, Hallie, that the science very clearly bears out that overweight and obesity is absolutely associated with so many potential health risk factors, arthritis, certain kinds of arthritis and cancers and cardiovascular disease, that I think that it's okay to have a conversation about the fact that we do have a significant weight problem in this country, and that anything that we can do safely to get people to a healthier weight where we know that they won't, suffer those potential outcomes is an appropriate thing to talk about and to do.
Dr. Natalie Azar, great conversation as always. Thank you for talking us through it. Appreciate it. That does it for us for this hour. We've got a lot more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.